Hey everybody, Jen here in my kitchen. This week we're doing broccoli cheddar soup. So somebody requested hearty soups, and my mind immediately went to this broccoli cheddar soup that I've made for, I don't know, probably 25 years. It actually came from the milk calendar, and I've made so many different variations on this recipe that I thought it would be really great to demonstrate to you guys, because once again it's kind of like it's a choose your own adventure soup. So we're going to start with butter. You can use any kind of oil. We're going to heat it up in the bottom of a pot, and then we're going to saute our onions. So this is where you start developing that really great flavor, is by caramelizing your onions just a little bit. And then we cook the rest of the vegetables. So while your onion is cooking, you can chop up your broccoli. So if you like your soup smooth and you have a blender or a hand blender or a food processor, you can use that. But if you don't have any of those, you can still make a good creamy soup, but you'll just have to chop up your vegetables a little bit finer. And I'm just going to show you, you can use all of this as long as it's, clean and it's looking pretty healthy. You can use all of these external leaves. The whole broccoli can go in. I would just cut off this tough end on the bottom, and then when you've got the stalk like this, just take off some of this harder skin that's on the outside. And so I'm going to blend up part of my soup with a hand blender, but I'm still going to cut up my broccoli fairly small, just so it doesn't take too long to cook. And then even if those bits don't get blended up, then you've got some nice smaller bite-sized pieces. Onions are becoming a little bit translucent and cooked, and starting to brown a little bit. So at this point, you can add your flour. So I'm doubling my recipe just because I have two nice small heads of broccoli. Just remember that whatever amount of butter you usually use the same amount of flour to make the roux. So this is to thicken it. And if you didn't want yours thick and creamy, you don't have to do this, but this just makes it a little bit more hearty. So I've got 2 tablespoons of butter in the recipe and 2 tablespoons of flour. And then I also have a bit of cayenne powder, which is optional, but I think a little bit of spice, not too much, it's just like a little bit of heat, is really nice with this soup. Kind of brings out the flavor of the broccoli and the cheese. Gives it like a little bit more of a sharp bite. So now we're going to cook the flour in the butter, just like we did for our last recipe. Just let it cook a little bit. You don't want your stock going into like raw flour. Don't let it burn. So just keep stirring for about a minute, and then you'll smell that flour sort of get a bit of a nutty, toasted smell to it. And then we're going to add in some chicken stock. So I've made this before with vegetable stock, which works really well. Water, if you don't have any stock at all, is also fine. And if you have extra vegetables to use up, like a zucchini, if you only have like 1 head of broccoli but you want to double it, you can use zucchini in place of all of the broccoli. If you want to add in some extra greens, this is a really good soup to do that. You can throw in some spinach at the end, or collard greens or kale, and nobody will really notice it. So now that stock goes in, and then we'll bring this up to a boil and then add our broccoli. Okay, it's starting to simmer. We'll add our broccoli. And then we'll bring this up to a boil and let it simmer until the broccoli is cooked. Probably takes about 10 minutes. While you're waiting for your broccoli to cook, we can grate our cheese. Okay, so once your broccoli is pretty cooked through, you can take it out now and blend half of it or all of it. But if you have a hand blender like I do, I'm just going to add in my milk, and then it loosens up the soup a little bit so it's, more liquid. And I'll still want to heat this up, so I'm going to keep it on. And then I just go in with my hand blender and blend up, about half of it. Turn it up a little bit, so you don't want it to boil with the milk in there, because you don't want it to separate, but you're going to just heat it through, and you can see that there's still some nice chunks of broccoli in there. And then you can put in your cheese. So like I've said, I've made this many different ways before. I've done it with all different types of cheese. If you just have feta or some Parmesan, you don't need as much cheese. I wouldn't do a mozzarella, something with a little bit more flavor, but you could do a blend of mozzarella and maybe some Parmesan, so something a little bit more cheesy. I've done it with a little bit of cream instead of milk, or yogurt is really nice too. So kind of like you'll find a variation that you like, but if you really want this soup and don't have the exact ingredients on hand, you'll still be able to make a delicious broccoli cheddar soup. Oh, I always do that. Make sure you save some of your grated cheese for putting on the top. You don't have to, but I like to have just a little bit of extra grated cheese for on top of our bowl of soup. You don't want this to boil, but just bring it up to until it's hot, and then serve it.